everyone, it's Ryan Fowler here with Jordan Kurtz and Tim Costello in our game group live. We have a good one today. Tucker Carlson's been on a tear recently. He's interviewed, as everyone knows, Putin. He's interviewed, I think, was it the president of El Salvador?
Yeah,
we're talking about, Jordan.
Yeah, he's doing them all.
He's exploding in popularity, and he has had some unique observations of the elite, wealthy, politicians, the movers and shakers,
celebrities,
and some stuff that ties into inner game. So we thought we would do the show today on that, and kind of just comment on some. I think there's a lot of narcissism there with these people. So like people harp on Trump, and it's like, listen, man, pretty much everyone else is as big or bigger narcissist than him. So anyway, so Tucker's going to talk about that. We're going to comment and say, hey, what's going on with inner world stuff here. But before we dive into that, Tim, introduce yourself, and then Jordan.
Yep, I'm Tim Costello with Tim Costello Hypnosis. And we all do the same thing here. Reach out to one of us if you want to fix your inner game and rise above what's holding you back.
Okay, Jordan. Thanks, Tim.
All right, I'm Jordan Kurtz with Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis. I do hypnosis like these other two, and I help you find your limiting beliefs to unlock your full potential using hypnosis.
All right, and love your studio, man. Look at
Thanks.
you kicking some butt. You got your almost tailored suit too, so.
Yeah, it's almost perfect. Yeah.
Are you going to start doing a show or something? Because you look like you're set for it, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm running out of excuses not to. So,
Okay. I'll interview you on my show then.
Get rid of that limiting belief.
Yep, for sure. That's coming soon.
Okay, so we're all about your inner world, especially your subconscious mind, which is influencing all these crazy people in power. But mindset in general. So let's go ahead and dive in. Jordan, it was your suggestion to do this. Good suggestion. So do you want to set up, talk a little bit maybe about Shawn Ryan, who's interviewing Tucker, and give a little more background before we dive in?
Sure. So this is about halfway. They talked for 3 hours about a lot of topics. I listened to the whole thing just because I was interested in it. And about halfway through, they started talking about, a couple things. One was insecurity and ego of people who have money. They started talking about external validation and competitiveness in the military. And
because Shawn Ryan is ex-Special Forces, I believe. Correct?
Yes. I think he's Navy SEAL, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they're talking about, basically, I didn't think they meant to go down that route about inner game stuff, but they start talking about that for a good 10, 15 minutes. And there's a lot of, I find that almost so I listen to a lot of podcasts in general now, and I find that it's very rare for me to listen to a podcast where it's something we couldn't cover on the show that's not inner game related. It just seems like it bleeds through everything. I mean, obviously, I'm a hypnotist, so I'm looking for it. If you expect to see red cars, you'll see red cars. But I think that, and so perhaps that's some of the effect is there, but still good for our show. So we're gonna cover it.
All right. So here we go. And we will just, anything to say before we start this particular clip? Let me take it full screen. Or should we just dive in
quickly on what Jordan said? We're always watching things, no matter what I'm watching now. And it could be car chase videos where they nab the guy at the end, or some police interactions and stuff. You can see inner game at work. And when I say inner game at work, we all have an inner game. If your inner game isn't tuned up to move you forward to success and happiness and joy, then it's probably tuned up to keep you away from those things. If it is back to keep you away from those things, you see guys like us to help you identify, like Jordan said, what's limiting, and then help you move forward. And there's even very successful people that will come to us to fine tune what's going forward and even get better at what they're doing.
Yeah. And 95% of our behavior is our subconscious mind. It is also the source of our emotions. And so that's where you got to start to get the big results, which we constantly do. So, and I offer free 30-minute consults, links in the description. I think, did you guys start that, or do they just contact you? How do people contact you guys? What's up?
We do it as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
So, in the description, if you want to get hold of us. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. And here we go. Tucker doing his thing with Shawn Ryan.
You're like, I can't believe I live there.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of us know what you mean at this point.
Well, and I have to say, I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but it's especially relevant to you and men like you who went and, were asked to risk your lives and to kill other human beings and to really give up everything for the sake of this thing. And the disillusionment that I have noticed in men like you who've really done a lot for this enterprise and then come to the obvious conclusion that it's not exactly what it seems. I can't imagine living with that. I honestly can. And I sort of get the suicide rate. I'm just being honest. I get that. I mean, how much of that, I know this is a very complicated subject that you're deeply involved in, but how much of the despair and up to and including suicide comes from guys realizing, wow, maybe that wasn't worth it?
It's a hard question to answer because there's so much going on.
Yeah, I believe
what I mean. It definitely plays a role, but it's not the whole role.
I believe that.
There's just they're now calling, especially for like special operations guys that have just done it over and over. Like we were talking about in my interview with Tom Spooner, guys done over 1,000 hits, meaning he's hit 1,000+ targets. I mean, 1,000?
I think it's totally disgusting to do that to anybody, to ask any man to do that. That's too much. I'm sorry.
And then they kick you out. But it's what you did. It's how you did it. It's addiction to adrenaline. It's culture of being in that life. It's a very toxic fucking culture. It's the competitiveness that's ingrained in you from the time you show up day one, week one of training. It's who's the fastest runner, who's the fastest swimmer, who's the best shot, who's killed the most people, who's gone on the most ops, who's gone on the most high profile ops, who's got the most jumps, it's all that all the time. Every day you have to prove yourself to be there, which we had talked, at breakfast about egomaniacs in my community. And I've thought a lot about this.
Let's
and
stop
I think
right
that's
there
where
before we go
from.
on.
I think it.
Yeah. I'm thinking of all the controversy about Jocko Willink, but yeah.
Yes. So he answered that very well when Tucker asked him that question. He said, there's a lot going on, not only in the environment around these men and women who are serving at these high capacity, high stress, high demand type of military jobs, but on top of that, they have some baggage. Not all of them. I'm sure there's a few that are wrapped up pretty well, but he talks about who's faster, who's more, who's this, who's whatever. It's a tremendously intense competitive environment with a lot of toxic environment kind of thing. I mean, to the point where it's awful. And on top of that, these guys may or may not have baggage left from childhood, from abusive parents, uncles, environment, whatever the case may be.
What drove them into that super
Yeah,
competitive environment in the first place.
And when you're on the outside looking in to a career, it always becomes a whole lot different than it looks like from the outside. Just like Tucker said, you get to the point where, and then you get involved in it and you get all these missions and you come out of it. Now you got to deal with, wow, did I just do bad? Am I good enough? Do I deserve this? I mean, it goes on and on for all of these episodes that they're now dealing with. So why is the military suicide rate higher in some jobs than others? Well, look what they're dealing with, and look what they're bringing in for baggage. So it is a tremendously complex thing going on inside your mind, dealing with the baggage from the past and the current environment that you're living in, or the one that you just left.
And by the way, divorce rate for Navy SEALs, 90%.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah.
Because they're now going to be abusive and toxic to their best other at no fault of their own. They just don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, it's too much to deal with on your own, for sure.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go back to
Now he gets into the good stuff.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I can add in a little bit. It's what Tim was alluding to is that external validation from the military. You're only good enough if you can run the fastest, swim the farthest. They've done the most missions, the most parachute jumps, the most kills in some scenarios. So it's the external validation on steroids. It's designed that way. That's not an accident. That's not a bug. That's a feature.
And Shawn Ryan isn't the only guy who's talked about this. A lot of
Right.
ex-special forces guys say it's a very toxic culture. And the controversy about Jocko Willink is they were killing innocent people to up their kill count, and that made some of the local population turn into insurgents that killed a lot of extra Marines. That's the thing going around on YouTube for the last, I don't know, month or 2 or 3 about Jocko being a little too competitive, resulting in a lot of innocent people dying or good soldiers dying that wouldn't have died otherwise.
Correct.
Yeah. Through that competitiveness, because of that. Okay. So anything more, Jordan?
Just, I imagine I'm not an expert in military training and things like that, but I imagine there must be a better way rather than because we want the best trained soldiers, right? We want them to be the best they can be to protect us. So we don't want them to lower standards, but I imagine, I don't know, I have to do more research. There's got to be a better way to incentivize people to do well rather than just competitiveness.
I was not in special forces, but I was in the submarine force. And I can tell you that is a highly specialized environment and tremendously fueled by toxic shame, right?
And
if
how
you
is
didn't
that,
get enough
Tim?
when you were young, you got plenty of it in the Navy. Who knew the most about the ship? Who knew where everything was? I mean, it's a different type of hierarchy or a bunch of stuff you got to be competitive in, but it's it. Right. It's the exact same thing. And I think it's designed that way, like Jordan said.
And so toxic shame for our audience, most of you probably know, but those who don't, it's the number one cause of trauma. And then all these maladaptive behaviors of feeling that you're not good enough. It can be severe, like you're completely worthless, or it can be mild, but it's something that develops in childhood. Most people have it to some degree. Some have it to a very severe degree. And you see them having massive amount of problems in their lives. How did so you had this competitiveness, but how does that exactly tie into toxic shame, people feeling not good enough? Tim, your observation in the military.
Overall, it's competitive to the point where if you don't keep up, you're a dink. I mean, they call you names, and dink stands for delinquent in submarine qualifications. So if you don't measure up and you don't, you need to become one of the crew so that people can depend upon you to save their lives while they're in their rack sleeping. So it's a little bit different environment than Jocko and Shawn and stuff like that. Yeah. But still, it's fueled by shaming you into getting your qualifications done.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And you came out, I mean, you're just one of those rare guys who's always been confident, man. So
I was lucky. In fact, in submarines, it takes you normally about a year to qualify and get your dolphins. I got mine in 1 patrol in 6 months.
Wow. Okay, cool, man.
Because I wasn't going to put up with that crap.
If you've read that book, Turn the Ship Around, I think by that what is he, a submarine captain? I think
Yep,
he
he
actually
is.
describes how he turned the ship to be more efficient by removing some of those elements of toxic chain. Maybe we cover that next week. Who knows?
Yep, it's a good one.
I
It's a
just
good
thought of
book.
that. Yep.
Very interesting. I'll have to check that out. All right, so we'll keep going.
It is the competitive nature is ingrained in you, and striving for perfection on day one, week one of training when you're going to become a special operator, though. And
I do. That's so clearly true and nicely put. You obviously thought about it a lot. I would just revise something that I said at breakfast, which was to describe people like that as egomaniacs or narcissists. I do think this is so obvious. It's just coming to me in the last few years, but like egomania is really insecurity masked. You know, people who are comfortable with themselves, who really are deeply, first of all, you can feel it immediately. If someone is actually kind of content inside, it conveys it's a smell, and I can smell it like that. And it's the opposite of egomania. People like that do not, like the man you're talking about, Tom Spooner. Is that correct? So I watched that. That guy, just through the screen, I could feel that man's like has achieved a high level of contentment or peace, or he's wrestled with things and settled a lot of things inside him. So I could just feel that coming off just on the screen. I could feel that. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I never met him, but that was
true.
I got that vibe right through my phone watching that. Because I think it's that obvious. And it is the opposite of the way that people we describe as egomaniacs behave, which is constantly reminding you how great they are. Well, you know, someone who actually thinks he's done an okay job or is at peace inside is never going to remind you that he's great, because it doesn't occur to him. He's focused on you or whatever. He just,
Brian.
This is a difference between needing outside validation to feel good enough and giving it to yourself so you don't need it from the outside world. That's exactly what they're talking about here. What do you guys think?
Can you
Go
guys
ahead, Jordan. I know you wanted to say something.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I like that he pointed out, I can feel it when somebody has their stuff sorted out. I mean, what he's really alluding to is what we might call inner game or high self-esteem, and you can feel it.
Authentic
And
confidence.
It's like, yeah, you can feel that. You can sense, I don't know, body language and the words that they use and the inflections in their voice and how they communicate. You can sense all of these things in other people, and it's very, like, once you see it, you can't unsee it, I think.
Yeah.
And I like to say, you know, I've heard this before. Nathaniel Brandon always said, you know, self-esteem seeks its own level. And so people of high self-esteem, and I think Tucker has he seems like he has higher self-esteem than he's had in the past, because he's struggled with alcohol, things like that. But I think now he can see that in other people a lot easier, because once you level up your self-esteem, you see it in other people, I think, a lot clearer, because it is an aura.
Yeah.
It's a vibe that you present to the world.
I'll take the opposite coin, then I'll let you go, Tim.
Yep.
When I started up leveling, because I was actually going in, connecting to my trauma and getting it out of me, then especially for the first few years after that, I was seeing people with trauma everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap, everyone's messed up in our society. There's all these people putting on masks, seeking outside validation. They're projecting, they're doing stuff hurtful to others to try and cover their own pain, or they don't want to acknowledge the shame in them, so they project it to the world. Just codependency, just seeing all this stuff. And what's really interesting, I just did I'm trying to get to once a week with videos. I've had internet problems and production problems, so it's been like once every week and a half or 2 weeks, but it's getting to once a week. Just did a video on making the unconscious conscious, and one of the benefits of going into your internal world, connecting to your shadow, the stuff in you're not aware of, or maybe you don't want to be aware of it because it's painful, is you get a really good internal connection, and then you start to see stuff in other people. And yeah, I think Tucker has become more aware to some point, saying, oh yeah, I just see this contentment. That guy who's content loves and accepts who he really is at his core. That is called authentic confidence. It's just a belief that the real me has value. Now you can have confidence in your ability to do something, but you can also just have that confidence like the real me is acceptable and good enough and has value. And when you have that, you don't need it from the outside world. And it's such a strong place to come from compared to all these other people that get criticized and it crushes them and, all that. So you were going to say something, Tim?
Yeah. So two things that he said. One is he mentioned that egomania and or narcissism, because he mentions the both at the beginning of that sentence. They're not exactly the same, but they're not totally unrelated.
Yeah.
And maybe some egomaniacal people might be on their way to becoming a narcissist. But essentially, egomania is you're just so self-centered and focused on yourself. That's coming from a place of insecurity that might not be as damaged or damaging as you have developed narcissism, which is now your really big mask.
Yeah, all narcissists
are
egomaniacs.
Right. And narcissism has so little internal validation that every single bit of validation it gets has to come from the external world, and that is generally generated by themselves. Egomaniacs generally like everybody to talk about them. So they'll create activities that people will talk about them, tell them how great they are. And I'm generalizing this tremendously.
Yeah.
Where a narcissist will create the damage so that they can see the result of that and get fed from that external validation and narcissistic supply.
Yeah, narcissists are like egomaniacs that need narcissistic supply. Why do they need narcissistic supply? Because they have a ton of toxic shame in them and they do everything they can to run away from what's inside of them.
Correct.
And what they do is they become extremely outward focused and they absolutely must, one way or another, they either power trip from emotionally bullying you or they get adulation, praise, external validation from you, but they absolutely must have one or the other, or they will just crumble.
Correct.
So they're literally, it's for them, it's kind of a psychological fight for survival, this need to dominate others, to get adulation from others, to manipulate, control, or even power trip just off of emotionally hurting you.
Right. And I don't think they don't get up in the morning of their lives and say, I'm going to go manipulate people. But
no, it starts in their childhood.
Is they now have to survive and they learn how to create that by manipulation, right? It becomes their tool in their bag kind of thing. Now, the other thing that Tucker said was that the Tom Spooner fellow, and I've not watched the Shawn Ryan, Tom Spooner interview yet, but he talks about how content this guy was. And Tucker now puts onto him what Tucker's been through. In other words, this guy must have really wrestled some things, overcome some things, and put to bed some demons and all that kind of
just
stuff.
Like Tucker had to.
In reality, the guy may have been wired correctly from the beginning by a good set of parents. And that's why parents are so important, right? I don't know
that's
which
you,
one
man.
it is.
That's why you've been confident. I met your parents and they're just good people, man. And you just had a good upbringing, in my opinion.
I was just lucky.
I'm not saying you didn't have challenges, but you had good parents that put good beliefs in you. Yeah.
Yep. And I agree. And thank you. But
the
reality is that Tom Spooner may have been wired correctly from the beginning, or he did fight some demons along the way like Tucker has. Either way. But it's a really great observation because Tucker is now recognizing an inner frame or a frame built around a solid inner game.
Yeah, man.
This guy, Tom Spooner, he doesn't need you to tell him how great he is. He just knows intrinsically on the inside, knows his value and moves forward with that. And like Tucker said, you can smell it. You can detect it. Where, if you look at the people out there and politicians all essentially sell their soul to something, even Donald Trump, who is probably a little bit more of an insecure egomaniac than he is a narcissist, because Donald doesn't destroy anything. He builds stuff around him, and then once the adulation, maybe that's his manipulation of, let me go build all this stuff and people will see how great it is and tell me how wonderful I am. Plus he tells everybody else how wonderful he is. So more of that egomaniac than a narcissist.
I think he has narcissistic traits. I don't think he's NPD. I think, like you said, more kind of maybe egomaniac.
Right. And that's where I'd throw him in that camp, which is not a bad thing. I mean, his intent is good and all that kind of good stuff. And that's a whole different show. But the reality is there are narcissists out there, or people who are literally putting a mask on. Look at Kamala Harris more than Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is afraid of her own shadow. Literally afraid of her own shadow.
Please don't make us look at her.
But you know what I'm saying is that she is she's a destroyed person.
I think she's afraid of it because she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, she don't know what to do with it. She don't know how to act. She's in a place.
She literally doesn't know what a shadow is.
But I'm just saying that she's in a place that she doesn't know how to act and doesn't know what to say. That's why she repeats herself and goes on and on. So she is a full-blown narcissist. I mean, she's just damaged. And again, I'm not diagnosed.
I do 3 free sessions for her, but I know it'll never happen.
Right. No, she'll never become vulnerable. Anyway, that's my thoughts on what Carlson just said.
All right, cool. We'll keep going. Thanks, Tim.
Doesn't need to do that. Like, what?
Yeah.
You're compensating. You feel like shit if you're doing that, actually. And competition makes you feel bad. Of course. Am I actually the fastest? I don't know. That's why I have to tell you that I am.
Yeah.
And it's sad when you start to see it that way. I don't like egomaniacs. I don't like people who can't stop talking about how great they are. I actually hate that more than almost anything. But in the last few years, I've decided, no, you should feel sad for people like that. And famous people and SEALs, let's just be honest, are famous people. They're celebrities in our culture. They're universally loved and respected. I mean, that's just true. It was this kind of obscure thing that President Kennedy thought up, but now it's a huge part of our culture. They're Hollywood celebrities, basically same thing. Famous people, for some reason, the more famous they get, I've lived among this my whole life, the more insecure they get. It's so interesting. The more they're praised, the more they...
Anything to add, or are you just saying bingo?
No, just bingo. That the more you feed the egomania, it develops into narcissism, and he's describing what's happening, where they're going to...
It's a black hole. It's a bottomless pit.
Can't get away from. Yeah.
Well, and I'll add on too. So, and he's like, the more famous they get, the more praise they get, the worse they feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they have a negative maladaptive belief in their head that they're not good enough for other people. And it's a cycle. So they think they need more praise to fill it. And they get that praise, but it doesn't make them feel better.
Yeah, and then they're like, now what do I do? It's not working.
Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly
when
the
they
point.
self-delete.
They realize that the thing they wanted to make themselves feel better isn't making them feel better. So now it's okay. I just didn't get enough. Now I need more.
Right.
And so they get more. And that still doesn't make them feel better. And now they're even more panicked. They're like, crap, I need to get maybe I just need more. And they get more. And that doesn't make them feel better. And so they're like, they're in this cycle that never ends because they don't understand that validation has to come internally rather than externally. Because the more they get, the more they think they need, because that what they're getting isn't satisfying their internal needs. And so they get more and more panicked. They get more and more insecure because it's not working. And so it's like trying to dig yourself out of it's like if your car is stuck in gravel and you just keep pushing the gas pedal harder and harder.
Tires just sinking deeper in. You're just digging a deeper rut.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was just a influencer, multimillionaire influencer named John Anthony in the last few weeks or month or so, self-deleted. And pictures of him with his Rolls Royce Ghost or some sort of Rolls Royce, just all the women he wanted, just tons and tons of women, 9s and 10s and, super and like age 30 or younger. Young multimillionaire with everything self-deletes.
And here's
Wow.
why. Here's why. Those people who have that maladaptive inner game transpose onto themselves what they think everybody else thinks is success and happiness and joy.
Yeah.
And none of that ever brings what you really want. So, like Jordan said, it's a never-ending cycle. I had 5, now I need 10. I had 10, that didn't work. I need 20. Had 20, that didn't work. I need 40. I mean, you can never get enough. Kurt Cobain, Marilyn Monroe, Ryan tells the story of them all the time, right? In this person,
All self-deleted, all extremely successful, intelligent, charismatic
and
people.
I promise you that person, when he posted his picture of him and his ghost, the Rolls Royce, he was watching those likes, watching those thumbs up.
Am I good enough now? Do they like me enough?
And
I must be good now.
Because at the end of 5 million likes or whatever the heck it was, oh, well, that was empty. I need to do something more to get something else. And eventually you get to the point where you cannot find joy, and it is a tremendous struggle just to stay alive.
Yeah, external validation never fixes toxic shame. This internal subconscious trauma developed in childhood that unless you go inside to fix it, it will be with you till the day you die, and it'll cause so many problems. And again, some people just have a little bit. Some people moderate amount, some people a ton. The more you have it, the more you struggle, for sure.
Correct.
And that's what we're talking about here with these egomaniacs, et cetera, that's at their core, as opposed to that guy who had internal peace. He accepted, loved, and valued himself just for who he was. And you can tell, by the way, when you get that, people like you more. People like you more. They treat opportunities open up. My income doubled within 2 years of starting to fix my internal world, which, a big chunk got fixed very rapidly, and wasn't even trying. And I'm in an industry where I talk to people and they decide to hire me, and people just started hiring me more. So I made a lot more money. It was great. Yeah. All right. Here we go back here. Okay.
They feel insecure about who they really are. Maybe they don't believe. I don't know what it is, but that is absolutely phenomenal. If you subject someone,
that is what it is,
to constant adulation.
Rewind 10 seconds, Ryan, because he slips that past real fast.
Okay.
Insecure about who they really are. Maybe they don't believe. I don't know what it is, but
there it is, right there.
Little
feel insecure about who they're interesting. The more they're praised, the more they feel insecure about who they really are. Maybe they don't believe. I don't know what it is, but that is absolutely phenomenal.
I'll tell you why. It's because they're putting a fake version of them out to the world, not the real them, because deep down they feel the real me is not acceptable. So I'm going to put out a version of me that people think is acceptable. And when that version gets praised, it just confirms that the real them in their mind is not acceptable. Oh, I have to be this fake version to get praise. The real me can't get this.
Yes.
That's why.
Now,
that's why. He's like, I don't know why. I just told you why.
In the next couple of words comes the core belief thing that he scrapes right against it and runs right past.
Okay.
If you subject someone to constant adulation, over time you'll make him hate himself.
I think a lot. I think a lot of this comes from. I've talked about this a lot before, but there's very few people that you meet in media that are the same person that they are on camera is off. And and
because they're frauds.
You're one of them. You're the same person.
Well, I hope so.
And it's just refreshing to see.
To be more than one person.
Well,
I'm too busy.
It's I think a lot of people like they get to a certain point in life by being in character. They wear a fucking costume. They're a character. It's a facade. And then they get fucking trapped in that facade, and they can't get out of it. And so there's nothing real about.
Hang on, I'll pause.
And that's what I was just talking about.
That's exactly what Jordan said.
And I said too, but go ahead.
And why do they get trapped? So he says they get trapped in that character. Why are they trapped? Because the character is the thing they think people like.
Yep.
Well, and it's being reinforced when that character gets
Exactly.
adulation. That's what I was talking.
Exactly. And so
And that's why Tucker was saying it makes them hate themselves. Yeah, because the real them's not getting that, the fake them is. And they end up resenting that they have to be this fake person to the world.
Right.
Maybe resentment's not the right word, but go ahead.
well, I think there is a component of resentment, certainly.
Yeah, can be for sure.
Even if it's self-resentment too, or resentment of their fans. But so that is the trap. I mean, I can't be who I really am, otherwise people won't like me. If people knew who I really, it's that belief. If people knew the real me, they wouldn't like me.
They'd be shocked, they'd be disgusted, they'd be disappointed, they'd reject me, they'd see how different I am, not good enough, unacceptable. They'd see how inadequate, whatever.
And I want to be clear, they trap themselves. It's their own trap. It's not other people trapping them.
Correct.
They trap themselves.
But that trap is a coping mechanism as they attempt to cope with the trauma. That they did not create we kind of create the trauma, but it's really stuff happens to us as kids, and we interpret it a certain way that leads to trauma.
Well, meaning it's a trap of our own making. It's maybe we didn't intend to make it, but a trap is inside of our subconscious mind.
Yeah, and it starts as a kid. So, I'm not trying to shame or fault anyone who's in this situation because it started as a kid, but that's right. The trauma isn't what happens to us. It's how we interpret what it means. So it's kind of us, but honestly, if you have a really good upbringing, you're not going to develop that trauma. So,
well, meaning it's not the audience isn't putting that actor in a scenario where it's like, you got to stay the same way your entire life, otherwise we won't accept you. They're not saying that to them, but that's how they feel about themselves.
True.
Sure. That trap that mask that they're creating and they get stuck in, like Jordan's alluding to, that eventually, and I don't want to say the only way out, but one way out of that mask, when you know that deep down that's not really the you, is that self-deletion that this Anthony guy experienced, right? The other way out is that, guess what? You could dive deep. You could find out why you don't feel good enough. And then, boom, you're good to go. Look at Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Carrey woke up one day and said, I've been playing this character, Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And I don't think the real Jim Carrey has come out yet, but he's created another mask that he thinks is a way out of that first mask. Funny, the TV show or the movie Mask.
Yeah, he did that TV. He did the movie Mask. Yeah.
But I'm not sure the second thing that he's created is the answer, because it's another thing that he says, now this group of people will accept me and like me, and I feel like I'm really standing on my own 2 feet, but he's not.
Yeah, his thing, like I'm nothing, we're nothing, or whatever.
Yeah.
He's trying to just abolish his ego, but to a point we actually need our ego. So ego's not all bad. It's there although it can cause a lot of problems. By the way, if I didn't say it already, I know I put it up there. P-Dubs, welcome. Leopard Leather Works, that's Carrie, who we got rid of her anxiety and now she's going ape shit with her business. Congratulations, Carrie, making tons of money. Jay and a bunch of stuff after it. Hey, Jordan Ryan. Hey, Jay, a bunch of stuff after Jay. And we have a comment here from your wife. Starts as a child. She knows because we cleared that trauma. We went back to her childhood, her testimonial, video interviews in the video section, talking about how we went back 40 years in time into her memory, got that trauma out of her. So thank you for your comments. This is all completely true, Carrie.
So let's talk about Carrie for a second. She was a really good Walmart associate, really hated working there because, again, that's another toxic environment because you have lots of broken people trying to compete for nothing. Mm-hmm. And, she's probably making $40,000, $50,000 a year. Since she left, she has doubled and a halved her income.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the reality,
and it's growing, and it's growing,
and it's growing,
and it's growing quickly.
Talk about the reality of getting out of your own way. This is it. Mm-hmm. Ryan gave her a session year and 3/4 ago.
One session.
Yeah, it took her a couple of months to adjust into that, and then rockets fired, and now I'm working 40 hours a week for her, so she don't have to go to work. Now she's also working a lot, doing the other part of the business I'm not doing, but she literally has doubled and a half her income, or tripled at this point as the rate we're going for the end of the year.
And that's the thing, man. You fix your internal world and it changes everything.
Yep.
So it's just so crazy. And a lot of people don't want to go in and fix their internal world because they have to come face to face with some painful stuff. But when you do, it changes everything. It is so worth it. It is amazingly worth it. I've done it. Jordan's done it. Your wife has done it. You've always had a good self-esteem, but now you're doing it for others and seeing
Right.
big change in people's lives. And that's why we have a show, to change the world with these methods and educate people. Okay, so thank you, Tim. Let's keep going. We'll go, I don't know, another 10 minutes or so, and then I think some of us have to run, but
Yep.
here we go.
Sounds good.
Yes.
It's and now that they found success through being a fucking character, now they're trapped forever.
Well, that's why they have bad marriages. Because the one thing that you can't, like, you'll never fool your wife. You know what I mean? Like, you'll never impress her with that stuff ever. She knows who you are. And what happens is, and I have a PhD in this, having seen it so many times, the distance between how a man is treated in public and the way he's treated at home becomes intolerable for him. And I had a friend, a wonderful man, who was a very famous person, who ended up leaving his great wife. He was in his 50s, like one of the hottest 55-year-old wives around, and super nice. It's like, it was the kind of thing where it's like, why would you leave her? And I was in with him in private one time years ago, and he's like, going back to my wife. And I was like, he literally moved out. He was like maybe 53 or 4, and he moved in with like a 29-year-old. The kind of thing where everyone's like, what is that? You know, don't do that. And he did it, and he had to go back to his wife, and he's like, the amount of shit I'm going to have to eat. I mean, for real, I've humiliated her. My daughters want to kill me, but I'm going back because I really miss her. And I was like, why did you do that? And I thought he was going to say I was younger and I was dumber. And I thought he was going to say, because she's just full smoke show and she did shit to me in the sack you can't even believe. And, you know, not one word about that. Nothing to do with sex. He literally said, when I get home, my wife is like, have you taken out the trash? This is exactly what he said. And all day people kiss my ass and treat me like a celebrity. And I get home, my wife is like, okay, yeah, Mr. Celebrity guy. And he goes, I couldn't deal with it. And this young woman, it had nothing to do with the sex. I mean, she was hot or whatever, but it doesn't last, right? That's not that important, really. She treated me like I was Jesus. And I just wanted that. How self-aware is that?
Wow.
That's a high level of self-awareness. He was able to say that out loud.
Do you have any comments, Tim?
Dude,
You were laughing.
you know, it makes me laugh because
You're the married guy. So.
I've seen the people that think themselves of the world, right? Like they are the celebrity at their work. And I just, you know, I remember when I was talking with Doug McMillan. He's the CEO of Global Walmart. And when I say I was talking with him, I was amongst 2 or 3 other people. We were at a store manager's show, and we're all just standing around shooting the breeze for 2.5 minutes while he goes on to the next crowd, because he is a bit of a celebrity there. But he made a couple of comments about, you know, these shows really take a lot out of me because, you know, my job is to empty the dishwasher when the dishes get done and stuff like that. So here's a guy making $25 million a year, and he's got these real duties. He's a real guy at Walmart and a real guy at home. He doesn't believe all the press that people are telling about him because he's a secure, inner game, properly rigged kind of guy. He don't believe all the press about him, right? I mean, everybody wants
and a guy like that is like, yeah, I'll take the trash out, honey.
Yeah, because it's like, you know,
no big deal.
He's fully secure on the inside. He's got a good inner game. He's solid. And then I know the people that go, I don't take no trash out at home. Why? You create it. Why wouldn't you take it out? Yeah. So I laugh at that because
get over yourself.
Man. Tucker's right. Sex is good. Sex is fun. Sex is wonderful, all that kind of good stuff. But at the end of the day, it lasts a half hour, and then you got a whole week worth of work to do, right? You gotta get other stuff done. You gotta live. You gotta cook and clean and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, funny thing, over all the years Carrie and I have been married, which is 41 years now this October, she cooks now and again, makes a couple of meals, but the main thrust of cooking, if it happens in our home, is me, because I enjoy it. And I love cleaning up after cooking, you know. So the reality is that everybody's got a job to do, and you make your own crap. You got to clean up your own crap, and nobody's going to feed you. And unless you got billions of dollars and people are feeding you grapes and putting palm fronds above your head, you know, you got to do it. So,
Yeah.
So this guy that he's talking about, I have no idea who that is. He eventually said, okay, the 29-year-old was doing nothing but blowing smoke up my skirt to get the money.
Yeah.
And the wife knew him. And he even said how hot his wife was, et cetera, et cetera. But that didn't matter. What mattered was she treated him like a real person. And he needed to stop believing the press of everybody else and be a real person. Get out of that fake facade.
So
Okay.
I'll take a slightly different approach, just to play devil's advocate for him a little bit. So I'm curious to hear more of the specifics of this exact situation, but there are cases where some guys feel like the reverse. I would take almost the reverse of what Tim said, just to, you know, balance things out. So not that I agree with everything you said, Tim. I'm just going to take a little bit different.
I take no offense. Go for it.
So it's also possible if someone feels like, if someone doesn't feel like they're worthy of being treated well, and the world is treating them well, but their wife, who knows them best, is treating them poorly. She's not doing certain things she should be. She's not taking care of things. He's a plow horse. Plenty of men we've seen get into marriages, bad marriages. They're just workhorse. They're just providers. They don't, you know, they're not
that whip.
admired by their wife.
Sure.
And so there's also an option here where a guy feels like he doesn't deserve to be treated well by the world, but his wife treats him how he thinks he deserves to be treated, which is poorly. And so perhaps he got sick of that and went to a younger, you know, girl who treats him well. But then he felt like, oh, I don't really, she knows me better, but I don't feel like I deserve to be treated that well. So I'm going to go back to my wife. And I don't know if that's the case here.
Yeah,
but I've
that
also,
could be.
Who knows? Yeah.
I don't know the story, but it could be.
You know,
I don't think Tucker knows the full. I know he doesn't know the full dynamic of their marriage, you know.
Right.
Yeah, because we've seen plenty of men who are super successful in their careers, and yet they're married to a woman who doesn't treat them well. And I'm not saying you take out the trash or treat them. Say that again.
Who they'll be important and successful, and then they go home to a wife who like totally emasculates them.
Yes.
Just disrespects them, treats them like a little kid, like they can't do anything. Yeah, and that's sad. Right. That's for me. I wouldn't tolerate that. I would get the hell out of there. But
right,
yeah, and saying, you know, you take out the trash. I need you to take out the trash. We don't have enough context about the marriage to say whether or not that's
we don't
abusive.
We don't know the full story of their marriage for sure.
And so that's, you know, but that's also possible. And so I think, you know, if people and he's right, you know, people that know you best, that's how it's like that's how, if you think you deserve to be treated poorly, you'll be treated. If you really deep down think you deserve to be treated poorly, the people that know you best, then
you tolerate it.
You'll put up with it. Absolutely.
And you may even go back to those relationships, you know, but if you do value yourself, then you don't tolerate it. You have boundaries, you stand up for yourself, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So, although there are some situations where, you know, there are guys who know they don't deserve it, but maybe they stay in the marriage for the kids. So it is complicated. It's complicated.
It is very complicated.
Yeah. So, good points though. Okay. So we'll watch a little more and then, wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Okay. Oops.
And admit that. It's cool. That's so embarrassing, but he admitted it. And I've never forgotten that. And there's something about flattery that is way more destructive than criticism. I won't have it in my world, like at all, not one word of it.
Yeah.
Any flattery, you're done. Criticism is fine as long as it's sincere and meant to edify rather than tear down.
Constructive.
Constructive, that's right. But flattery is by its nature sinister. It's dishonest and it's meant to weaken you. And nothing weakens you faster than the things that feel good. Obviously, you know this as a former partier, but flattery is a kind of moral cocaine. You think it makes you strong, but actually it's hollowing you out inside.
Right there,
so anyway,
man. He is right there, right on the cusp of understanding the subconscious.
Yeah, how so?
See,
He just
Oh,
keeps
go ahead.
brushing against core beliefs
Mm-hmm.
without ever mentioning them. He just keeps getting close to the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I took a slightly I had a slightly different interpretation of that. So I can see what Tim's saying where he's so it's like flattery's interesting. I think what he's alluding to is he doesn't want to be lied to.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, because I brought up this question, does Tucker have good self-esteem and high, does he have, I guess, high inner game and high self-esteem? And I'm torn. I think he has somewhat high self-esteem. And I think it's because I don't have a problem with people praising me, but I don't want them lying to me. And I think that's he doesn't quite make that distinction. He does say,
Yeah.
I don't want people lying to me. And he alludes to that, but not all flattery has to be lying.
Really good point. And let me tell you why.
Yeah, there can be genuine compliments, but there are some people who will butter you up, flatter you
Yeah.
in order to make you vulnerable to them getting what they want.
Right. Flattery,
Which may not be in your best interest and often isn't. But it depends.
flattery, I think. Remember, we talked about the whether the behavior applause versus the label applause, right?
Mhm.
Flattery is, oh, you're really beautiful, right? The other part of that, which is building in the long term, would be, man, you really worked hard today to look great. I appreciate the effort, right? Remember, we saw that video of effort being praised versus the label or the identity and the difference that it does to a person in the long term.
Yeah, that's Andrew Huberman discussing a scientific study where there were children who were labeled as intelligent and they were given validation for succeeding. And in the long run, they perform worse than children who were praised for the effort instead of the success.
Correct. Now,
Absolutely.
we just got a comment from Zach that says Tucker shames himself a lot. It is true. He's like Jordan recommends. He's still got a bit of inner game work to do to feel fully validated on the inside, because I've noticed a couple of times, but we weren't focusing on it today, where he self-deprecates a little bit.
He does. From time to time, he does. Absolutely.
We'll cover that later. But you're right, Zachary Zanstra. You're 100% on the money. But Jordan, you're right. Flattery is smoke up your butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tucker even says he wants criticism. Thank you for the hard effort. Here's where I do a little better. That's what pushes you forward.
I know a guy right now, anytime he flatters me, it's because he wants something. I'm like, oh shit, what's he want now? And, whatever.
And shout out to Zach. Thanks for leaving the comment. I actually met him in Florida. And
nice.
Had a lot of good conversations. And so it was good. And I think I agree. He does self-deprecate. And that's why I noticed when he says the flattery thing, because when he's talking about, I'm wondering if part of the flattery is also his interpretation of the comment. If someone's praising him on something that he doesn't think he deserves to be praised about,
there you go.
That was a lie.
Could be. And that used to be me. I could not take credit for things. I could not accept compliments because I was like, well, the real me doesn't deserve that.
Right.
Yeah. There might be some of that going on there because he self-deprecates too.
Yep, could be.
Right. And so he's close to the answer, but let's, the lying is important. I don't want people just blowing smoke up my ass, but are they trying to do that, or am I interpreting that's what they're doing and they're not doing that?
Who knows? Complex world. Yeah, complex
Right.
world.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's a good stopping point. You guys, by the way, if you guys want to actually, let's see how I can get this. Not to put you guys to the side, but just so everyone sees. If you want a program for free that helps you feel good enough, learn that you are acceptable just as you are, which puts you in a tremendous position of strength. It's not blowing smoke up your ass. It's to get that in your core so you believe in your ability and value, so you don't need outside validation, so you're not insecure, not an egomaniac, etc. So you're not doing stuff to numb out the pain in you. We got a free program that helps you do that right there. It helps you locate trauma in you and then get it out of you, all for free. School.com/MindChrysalis -7138. Highly recommend. Give it a shot because it's free. So just give it a shot. We have a great community there. I'm about to schedule webinars. We're going to start twice a month webinars. I'm going to schedule some tonight. That's free too with that community. Go there to join. And then once you join, you click the classroom button, upper left, take the SOS free course. It's a 6-part course to get your core strong, all free. So just be aware of that. And that is our show. Do you guys have any final thoughts, Tim, Jordan?
No, nothing now. Good to go.
Okay, Jordan.
Watch the full interview is great. I highly recommend watching it.
Yeah, I saw about 70% of it, and yeah, it's good stuff, man. So it's long. It's like almost 3 hours, but yeah, it's good. It's great. So thanks, Jordan, and thank you for that suggestion. And yeah, that's all we got. So you are enough just as you are. Get that in your core. It will change everything, because then you don't need external validation, and you're just going to up level and do better across the board. You can do it. You can get the bad stuff out of you, put good stuff in, changes everything. And then you'll realize that what I'm about to say is true. And that is, we really do have more power than we know. That's our show. Thank you.